on this computer. All right, thank you. So from the little bit from the research that I did, let me see if I can say your title correctly. You are a singer, a songwriter, a producer, a music business consultant, a photographer, a writer, a poet, an activist, a vegan, and a mental health advocate. Would I?
Yes.
Yeah.
Just so many different hats, but
Yeah.
Yes, I do wear all of them.
It's quite a lot. It's a lot to fill in an Instagram bio.
Yeah. So I try to take like the most important ones, or the ones that I think like will catch people's attention, and then the rest kind of gets filled in as people follow me and get to know me.
Of course. So how about in your own words, what are the 3 that you feel you're most passionate about currently?
Currently is definitely going to be music is always my number one. Photography would be next, and then I would definitely say like veganism. Veganism is a lifestyle, and it's something that I can't avoid, and you have to be passionate about it to live it, because it is difficult, but it's also freeing when you realize that you have like the self-determination.
Yeah, of course. It's a hard path to navigate when there are so many mentalities that can easily argue so many sides that they convince themselves are so valid. And so you're trying to consistently break through those walls, and it can get exhausting, but people like you seem to not give up.
Yeah.
And that's needed. Again, voices to break through those barriers of traditions that should be obsolete, of saying, well, you need meat, and you need, well, okay, let's question this. Let's question the why. Why is it already accepted? And again, I feel like very much that's where you come into play with how you see things. And that's why I wanted to interview you.
I love that you put it like that, because I never thought of myself in that way, but you're right. Like, and that's where I definitely believe in, like, with the mental health too, breaking cycles, because our parents have been taught like all these different cycles, and we're just so used to like, well, this is how we do things. It's how it's always been done. And, my mom being very traditional Indonesian as well, like that's what she always repeats to me. And it's like, I think we've gotten to a point in society where just there's this enlightenment that's been reached, and a lot of us are able to kind of take that moment and say like, hey, wait, why are we doing things like this? So yeah, thank you for pointing that out. That's a really cool way to look at it.
Of course, yeah, of course, because you're right in the sense that there is sort of this awakening of society, and it can be good, but that also leaves room for more people to question it. It's an exciting game, but to kind of get more into your roots and more where you're from. You are currently based in LA.
I used to live in LA for a really long time. I'm really close to LA. Okay. It's about like an hour outside of it, a city called Moreno Valley, very specifically. A lot of people haven't heard of Moreno Valley, so the next thing I always say is Riverside. People have heard of usually.
Okay. Yeah, and I was gonna say that's in California, but obviously.
Yeah. I do live like part-time out of my van, so I do a lot of traveling. We just came back from Central California visiting some family. Last year we went to Louisiana. In a little bit we're going to Idaho, so we're really excited about that.
Oh wow, okay. So you add that to your list of many hats, a van dweller, a partial part-time van dweller. That's beautiful. So who's we in this situation?
My fiance, David Juno. We've been together for 7 years. So everything that I do, we've taught each other all of our skills. So he's taught me a lot about like music production and audio engineering, live sound, and I've taught him a lot about like photography, videography, editing, all of that kind of stuff.
Wow, you're like a really dynamic duo. it would seem.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Our goal is to honestly be like the next like one of the next like power couples, like
Yeah.
for lack of a better like thought, like the biggest power couple I can think of right now is like Jay-Z and Beyonce.
Yeah, yeah, of course. Yeah. And you definitely need to have that drive together, and two people can end up creating something bigger than the sum of their parts and build that empire together. And it's beautiful when you do that with someone you love.
Yes.
That's so sweet.
And it's hard. It gets so hard. Like social media can make things always seem like, oh, everything's always happy all the time and we just get along. And you know, we do a lot of like travel couple stuff, and you know, that can get wearing, but it's cool to see a more like realistic side of people, especially more these days than like when social media first came out. But you know, you when you love someone so much, you work past it, and you have patience and forgiveness, and you give yourself the patience and forgiveness too, because you have to. Like I find that in relationships a lot of the time, it's not the other person bugging you, it's your reflections of yourself that you see in the other person, and that's what gets you, and that's what causes a lot of like turmoil.
That's so true and very wise. And that's not really a level of understanding that many people can come to. And they're constantly thinking like, why is this person stressing me out? And it's like, well, if you can see them as, if for a moment, see them as a mirror and do that shadow work, then you'd be like, oh, it's because I do. Oh no, it's because I'm annoying.
Yeah.
Oh no.
And it's a hard process. It hurts to grow. That's the biggest thing. If you're not in pain, you're not growing. Not to say that you should be in pain all the time, but you know, a little bit here and there, like it means that you're opening doors that you've never opened, and you're seeing things that you've never seen. And it's a painful process, but it's so freeing.
It really is, and really worth it. Yeah. You also have a degree in digital marketing.
Digital media.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Where did you attend school?
I went to school at the Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising in downtown LA.
Oh, very nice.
That's when I started living there back in 2011. It was weird coming out of high school because my whole life I had wanted to be a singer. Okay. And I had gone to like a handful of music schools where they would prepare you for interviewing with record labels, and like they would always be like, if they ask you if you weren't a singer, what else would you be doing? Oh. You can't name anything else. Like you have to be like, I would be dead because I want to be a singer. Yeah. And so that was the mentality I had most of my life. And so I graduated high school, let's say like when I was a senior, I started really thinking like, well, what am I going to do? Like, I really don't know. And my best friend at the time went to FITM, and I was like, okay, I'm going to FITM. It gets me to LA, and my best friend's going there. And I even switched majors within like the first like few months because I didn't know what I wanted to do. But I had a major called visual merchandising when I first started. Okay. And I was getting so many opportunities already for like set design and all this stuff. And I was just like, do I really need to go to school for this? I'm getting opportunities. So I decided I wanted to learn a skill that I had never known. And at that time, technology was not super achievable for like just everyone. Like not everybody had the editing software. It was super expensive. Yeah. And digital media was a new field. Okay. And it's crazy because I looked at other like universities and state colleges, and no one had the major. So FITM, I believe, was like one of the first people to have it. And then like now I look all at these like colleges and schools, and they all have the digital media major. So it's pretty crazy to see how that industry in itself has evolved.
Yeah, I went to school for advertising and marketing from 2011 to 2013, and Instagram just came out in 2010. And so we thought it was the shit, the biggest thing ever. We learned, like, we were still learning how to buy radio advertisements and billboard advertisements. And one of my professors was like, you can't measure the ROI on a Facebook like. It's stupid. It's never going to make it. It's dumb. And like, that was the mentality at the time. And now the education that I gained, it's obsolete. And like 12-year-olds know more than I do.
Right. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And it's like, I wish that warning would have came with the degree at the time.
Yeah. It's so true.
But
I feel you.
At the same time, like, you gain so many connections and so much like
Yes.
like industry knowledge that isn't normally just put out. So, you know, you take you take it with a grain of salt, you take what you can, and
Yep.
you grow from there.
Yeah. Oh, precisely. Exactly. Like, so even if the education is obsolete, you still have those like amazing network conferences that you went to where you met like Mark, and Mark helps you out, or you met like Lisa, right? And so,
Right.
and you keep those friendships and those memories. So it's okay if we don't get radio advertisements anymore.
I know, it's crazy. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. That's crazy. Yeah, that's an insane shift. And then with podcasts, you get like influencers and all that. And I've done some influencer marketing. That's pretty crazy. I was in yeah, I ended up in film marketing for a little bit, where I was a marketing coordinator. Major films towards those audiences.
Yes.
So it was like my job to come up with ideas on like, how are we going to make them see this movie and make them like want to go see it and excited about it. So yeah, it's like to create like a little snippet for one of these movies, and I'm just
Really?
like, yeah, I was like, there is money in this. And honestly, like, I've seen people create stuff for free that was like, if not like the same quality, better. And have to reach out and
Be hungry.
Yeah.
Be hungry. I definitely find, like, with the podcast, I interview a lot of artists, and there's a common denominator of thought and mentality within all artists, and it's that to create or get out some a voice or an expression or a feeling in some way. And with what I've sorry. I'm like, where?
No, it's I'm back.
it'll come. Yeah, it'll happen. As simple as that. And I believe I was reading an Untapped hip hop article that you did with a magazine, and you were saying that that's something of your character that you definitely have realized, and that can make or break you, is when you get that sensation of feeling like you just can't do it. You need to fight that resistance.
Yes, that is. So after I went to FITM, I went to Musicians Institute, and I met so many amazing artists there. Like, there's some talent out there. And what the biggest thing that I've noticed between the people that are making it, that are being consistent, that have the followers, versus the people that kind of like fell off, is just that drive, that consistent passion that I've just always seen, a vision that is in their head and they need to get out. So that is, you know, that definitely is, you know, some artists got to the point where they just, you know, they were given the obstacles, and you just feel like those obstacles overcome your vision, and that's when it's just like, that's when you will fall off as an artist. And that's happened to me so many times. It happened to me again recently. Like, I came out with musical chairs, and I was so excited, and I did so much, and I planned so much for it. But then the vision got lost once I got into like real life and had to like work and do all this stuff.
Yeah.
So I haven't given up on the song. I still love the song, and I do actually plan on doing a little bit more promotion for it, even though it's been a couple months. But I still think that it's a good song with a good message that I want to be out there. And then I'm hoping to even actually have an EP pretty soon where I re-release it on there.
Yeah, you can consider that first time a soft launch, and then, you know, do it.
Yeah, exactly. And then like, and that way I can really complete the vision, because musical chairs, man, that song, first off, it was inspired by one of my favorite artists, Melanie Martinez.
Okay.
If you haven't heard of her, oh my gosh, she has this film on YouTube called K through 12. It's free to watch. It's an hour long. It's the length of her album, a little bit long, plus a little bit longer because there's like storyline. But it's so cool the way that she links everything together, and the metaphor that it is for like how even after you graduate, it's still like you're going through like school all over again when you come into real life.
Yeah, so true.
Yeah, so she has such a strong message, and I think because of that, she's not like, the label doesn't very well market her, so not a lot of people know about her.
Yeah, I found out about her through Instagram.
Good. I'm so glad you've heard about her. So
of course, yeah. But do you sorry.
No, I was just gonna say that with musical chairs, it was inspired by her and having that message. So I was watching a documentary, and it talked about how from when we're young, you know, we get taught competitive games like musical chairs, where, you know, you're literally pushing people out of the way to get that chair because you want to sit down and you want to win. And so that kind of sets us up for this capitalist ideal, this capitalist thinking, and growing up and accepting it, and understanding that this is what we have to do. And so musical chairs, you know, the song takes the game musical chairs and shows, kind of compares it to like how, you know, in society we're forced to be one way. We have to play this game. If not, like, we won't be accepted.
Precisely. Yeah. It's an awful stencil that we all get thrown into throughout school, and then we have to kind of formulate the way that we think to be accepted in a society that only accepts certain types of thought. And it's hard. Yeah, it's a hard cage to break out of. I find I've listened to musical chairs, and you explaining that message to me makes the song much more, it's already profound and beautiful and haunting in a very beautiful way. But that makes the message of the song much more poignant, and that's very creative.
Thank you. Yeah. I love writing, and one of my biggest points has always been to be creative and like to try to think outside the box of my writing, and you know, take pop songs that I really love but put my own twist on them.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And so you say that the vision for musical chairs kind of got muddied or dissolved in a way when you had to kind of bring yourself out of the creation process and bring yourself back into reality. And do you kind of feel like you're living two separate lives that you're having a hard time blending or compartmentalizing? They're being
definitely.
Yeah,
definitely. Especially when my fiance's business is in event industry, and like going to a lot of these like underground events where, you know, there's open mics and I would have a chance to perform and stuff like that, but I've got to work that night because my industry is not the same. And so that's where, you know, I am finding a balance. And honestly, I'll be completely open with everyone. I just put in my 2 weeks for my 40-hour job, and I am gonna find something else that works, because honestly, I wasn't having the time to continue my artistry. Financially, everything's opening back up, so it worked between my fiance and I, and him getting more work. but it's an ongoing battle of learning the balance between making that money and having your artistry. But once again, I think it's that drive that's going to ultimately win out. I'm pushing for, doing more with my photography, and once again, trying to get creative. I'm trying to think of, because photography, I didn't start getting into until maybe I was like 16 or so. So, but I've been a singer my entire life, and I've been writing my whole life. So I'm trying to take photography from the approach that I take music, and like see what other photographers are doing, but trying to find like what my twist is in all of that.
Yeah. And that comes with time and consistency and application every day. You need that time for it. And that's a decision that is very, very hard to make. So I commend you for making that. It's a hard leap. You're kind of splunking without a flashlight. You're just kind of jumping in the cavern. And
the biggest word that I am battling with right now is faith.
Okay.
As an artist, you have to have so much faith in yourself, in your artistry, in your friends for support, in your family. Sometimes your family's not always there. Like, my dad was the biggest, like, he was so against my pursuit of being a singer, and that was hard, but you work past all of that, and you find the support, and you have, once again, that faith in other places. And I think one of the biggest sayings that everyone's heard that always helps me get through is just, one no leads you closer to that yes.
Yeah, that's very true. And I was discussing this with my partner last night, because I myself find I go through phases where I want to completely give up on the magazine. I just don't want to do it anymore. And so I just find myself, you feel like I release an issue and then it's gone. And then what does it matter? Or I release a podcast and it's gone, and why does it matter anymore? It evaporates, and you have to consistently think of new ideas, and it doesn't matter to other people perhaps, but to you have to always think it matters, or else it will fall flat.
Right.
You need to consistently believe.
Yeah, exactly. So it's having that faith in yourself, and that vision that you put out. And I love how the magazine is called, like, Visio, right? Is how you pronounce it. Yeah.
Precisely,
so you have to put out that vision, and just hope that even though it feels like you've let your baby out there, and you've let it grow, you have to have faith that it's going to grow and reach the people that it needs to reach. And maybe it might not be like as soon as you release it, but who knows, like, someone could just be cruising, and 2 years later come across and like message you and say, like, hey, I just found your podcast and can't tell you how much it's helped me.
Yeah, precisely. It's the residual after effects that it leaves that you need to look forward to. But that's what I did want to get to was, what is your vision with what you create? Do you have kind of like a mission statement for you as an artist, as a creator? So
I've been wanting to work on this vision that I've had for a while, and it's one that I think encapsulates like the community that I'm in really well, but there is not anyone out there that does it. And it's just like, it's an artist that keeps, like, I want to have fun music, and I want it to be something that you can like dance to and feel good to. But at the same time, I also want it to have like a message, and I want it to be edgy, like, but at the same time, be for everybody. So it's a really fine line to walk. But my biggest vision is portraying someone with the emotional knowledge and the God, it's really hard to explain. I'm trying to like feeling like you want to help the world, but the world is also like changing so much, and there's all of these. So one of my favorite sayings is the devil can't create things. The devil can only take things, because God is the only one that can create things. And honestly, I'm not a super religious person. So like when I talk about God and all that stuff, the way that I view it is very different than other people view it.
Of course.
But okay, overall, the saying is the devil cannot create things, only God can. So that what the devil can do is only take things and flip it and make it look either like it's bad for you, or make something that's bad for you look like it's good for you. And so I feel like the world has done a lot of that. And I want to create an album where I can reach into people that are just like fighting through that struggle, but they're like coming out on the other side. And I want to create an album that helps people through the battle.
Yeah.
Because I know it can feel like a lonely battle, and I just want to make myself and other people feel like we're not alone, and that like we're all in this together. So a lot of the music that when I was doing Just Us with my fiance, and that's honestly like a lot of our companies and all that stuff, it's called Just Us because when we first got together, we created our like group, our duo entity, and it became Just Us. And so now everything we do is Just Us. Just Us Foodies, Just Us Entertainment. I'm having one of those moments of trying to get back to where I was.
Too many tabs open.
I know, all the tabs open. But
your mission of being able to help people, if they're already on the path of questioning, of discovery, if you've already seen through the bullshit, you can't look back. So it's kind of like Buddha was a prince, and when he left his palace with his horse Kataka, he noticed that there was sickness, and he's like, oh, I've never seen this before, shit.
Right.
And he's like, I need a Bodhi tree, I need to relax, I need to sit, think. And he did, and he thought quite a lot. And that's kind of what we as humans do. We leave our palace of comfort, whether that be we leave grade 12 out of the warm womb of post-secondary education, whatever that palace is, we leave our parents' house at 15, 16, 17, 18, whatever that comfort is that we leave, and we see outside of the bullshit, and we realize, oh, it's real as fuck out here. Oh.
Yeah.
But more so than the street smart aspect and the responsibility and the independence, you also start to go through the spiritual awakening.
Mm-hmm.
And you feel like you're just stranded. You're like, oh shit, where do I go now? Oh no, I have all these thoughts that aren't going to be accepted by society. People are going to think I'm crazy. Oh my goodness, what's going on? And that's where I feel like your music would come in to say, no,
yes,
it's okay.
Exactly.
Come to the other side.
You caught on to my vision. I'm so glad.
Yeah, I caught on.
I was like, I don't know if I'm explaining this right, but you got it. Yes. Yeah. Yes. My music is for that person. I feel like so many of us are at that place right now because of that spiritual awakening that's been happening like throughout society. And right now, like planetarily, there's a lot going on and astrologically. So it's like, I feel like we all need that music, and
we do.
And yeah, that's what I really want to work on. And I've come to a point where like that vision, I feel is the strongest it's been in a long time. And I don't want to lose it again.
That's so beautiful. It gives me chills.
Thank you. That means a lot. I can't tell you how much that means.
Of course. Yeah. See, you know, you're wise, and you know that the right message will find the right people. And that's proof of it. Your message is very easy to understand, and don't let people tell you otherwise.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And like, I have to say that you were a big part of me, honestly, at like the part of me that kept on going. When one of the first times that like I realized you were following me was you tagged me in saying that like I had helped you a lot with mental health.
Oh yeah.
And I had never met you. And I was like, wow, this person found me. And she says that like I help her a lot. And at that point, I was getting to a point where I was really like, am I affecting anyone? And I was so depressed because like all I want to do is help people. Yeah. And I want to help people. It may be asking for a lot, but I want to help people on a large scale. And I feel like I have that ability. And social media can be so hard to decide, like, do I want to keep going? Because personally, it's really hard. It's really hard to get the hate sometimes. It's really hard to see other people living their best life, honestly, when you're stuck working a 40-hour. But yeah. But you tagging me like made me be like, wow, I'm helping people somehow. So let me keep sharing my truth. Let me keep being as vulnerable and as honest as I can be. And that's when I like really started sharing more of myself, especially with my mental health journey on here. And I was like, I'm helping somebody.
Yeah, it's true. It's really true. I really struggle with the really dark side of borderline. It gets really dark in there. Yeah. It's a carnival of horrors. And so
oh God, tell me about it.
I know. So I know you, I know you understand, and that's why I know I can say that. And that's why I said, just seeing how you handle things, I think you handle things with emotional intelligence that at that time I couldn't reach and I didn't fully understand. And so seeing someone actively be able to apply it, I was like, oh, okay, it's possible. And I was like, okay, dope. And so that's what it was. So I'm glad. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you so much. That means the world. And I've seen you, like I started following you right after that, and I've seen you grow so much into like building this magazine, and it's just so cool. I've seen you put so much of your art out there, and you're so dope as well. And I can't wait to see who you inspire.
Thank you. That's awesome. That means a lot. Because like we just chill in our rooms, and we're like, especially with the pandemic, we just feel so isolated and we don't know who we're affecting. So these conversations are big and they're meaningful, and I appreciate them. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I kind of do want to switch gears. Yes. Because the podcast is going to be released not in tandem, but before the release of the psychedelia issue.
Yes.
Right. So I do know that from what I've seen and kind of creeped on your Instagram is that you are not foreign to psychedelics.
Correct.
And you use them responsibly, of course. What are your thoughts, if you just want to dive right into it, on microdosing?
Absolutely. Yeah. Microdosing is a whole nother experience. It's funny because when I am introducing mushrooms to my friends, and I'm like in a situation, I'm like, hey, would you be comfortable dosing? They're like, here, this is like, I don't know if I could trip. And I'm just like, no, like just a microdose. And they're like, huh? And it's really hard to explain to someone how a microdose affects you, because it's unlike anything else. And it affects everybody so differently, but it's just such a good way to come out of yourself. Mushrooms does this thing where if you can take just the right amount where you're not, like seeing visuals and stuff like that. So usually for people, it's like a 0.2 to like a 0.5.
Okay.
Definitely recommend getting a scale if you don't have someone that like puts it in pills for you. But you get these sensations of euphoria that allow you to kind of like step out of yourself and your situation and be grateful and see like the good things in life. And it can allow you to laugh and not be so weighed down by things in a way that like even cannabis can't do for you.
Yeah, precisely. Because cannabis, and I'm not a doctor here, but it seems to only latch on to the cannabinoid receptors, or whatever, and it goes to one
Right.
part and it affects one way. My first and pretty much last experience with mushrooms was such a small dose that the carnival of terrors I was talking about, that's consistently right here, and it's all I think about, it went to the back.
Yeah.
I didn't see things and I didn't hallucinate. It went right to the back of my head and I forgot about it. And I was able to be in the moment, and I was able to be mindful the way they write in textbooks that I wasn't before.
Right, right. There's just something that I think allows, like, obviously it releases a lot of serotonin.
That's what it's doing. Okay, I didn't know that.
Besides that, like, I believe it also latches on to the part of your pineal gland that's not calcified, and just allows you to see the world in a way, in a different way that is just not normally seen. And like, even I'll say during my last mushroom trip, I started talking to my fiance about important stuff, which is probably not the smartest thing to do. But funny enough, like, where I normally would have been really stubborn about something and it probably would have caused an argument, I smiled and I was like, I see your point. You know what?
God.
You're right. It was the craziest thing.
That's so beautiful. I bet he was so relieved. And he's, oh, thank God.
Yeah, and we had a great rest of the night. And we're normally something like that would have turned into like me being like, I need to be alone because I need to be with my thoughts, my spinning circle of thoughts, and like decipher what's real and what's not.
Yeah.
And then that affects him really hard because he just adores me and just wants to be with me all the time. Yeah. And it just didn't turn into that. So honestly, there have been moments even where we've dosed together and we can break doors, but approach with caution, approach how much you take with caution, and you'll be surprised sometimes. But I've even experimented with microdosing in a work setting. Okay. And while that can be it really depends on the person. It was a little bit hard the first time. I took less the second time and it was easier. But at that point I was in such a dark place that I felt like the microdosing almost wasn't working. So, it's always it's not going to be the end all be all, and it might not work for everybody at that moment. Precisely. So at that point I had turned to prescription medication, and I was on that for about a year, and it did what it needed to do. But for me, it wasn't a long-term thing that I wanted. And now ever since I got off of that, the microdosing is perfect for what I need. I just really needed to learn so I was on Prozac, and what the Prozac did was it numbed my emotions enough to where I was able to learn skills. I went to something called DBT, which is dialectical behavioral therapy. Seems like you've heard about it. And I honestly think that DBT should be taught in elementary school. Honestly, it's something that it's something that everybody needs to know, because society assumes that our parents teach it to us, but they don't.
No, our parents teach us how to yell at us. They don't teach us emotional regulation.
Right.
What? How do you think we got this disorder?
Right. So the medication helped numb me to learn everything that I needed to learn from DBT. Yeah. And then it helped me apply that stuff to real life. And then I felt like, okay, I can be me again. I can have my crazy emotions back and really learn to regulate them. And so that's where I'm at in my journey. I got off the medication, I want to say the beginning of this year. And I'm still actively learning how to apply DBT when my emotions are so heightened.
And that's Yeah, that's something I was so stubborn in my first class of DBT. I'm like, this is all great. This is wonderful. How about when I'm so suicidal, I can't think of any of this? What do I do then? And they're like, that's why you do the work. And I'm like, oh, okay, sorry. Oh, oh, I'm sorry. But it's so true, because even like they don't take into account that like borderline is so intense, and like so intense that like it takes so long to apply those skills. So I really, really commend you for understanding that DBT needs to be applied consistently with patients, and you need to forgive yourself if you slip. It's
Yeah. The
yeah.
one that I'm trying to do is the ice bucket thing, where you for anyone that hasn't heard of it, it's like when you're so stressed, your stress levels are so high, you're like not thinking straight.
Yeah.
Your heart rate starts to go fast. And one thing that they recommend in DBT is when you're feeling like you want to hurt yourself, or when you're feeling like uncontrollable, is to, and this is where the tricky part comes in, because it's like when you're in that moment, you're like, I don't want to get a bowl of ice cold water and fill it with ice. Like I just want to sit here, like
sit here in my pity party.
Yeah, so that's where I'm like, this is what I'm actively working on, trying to get up and get this bowl of ice and like put my face in it, because I've done it before. I've done it like once before and it works for me. And so the whole thing is, they say that what is it, the diver's instinct or something like that comes in, and your heart rate immediately slows down.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, so and that helps calm you down. It helps get all the fire out. It's literally extinguishing the fire.
Literally, yes, it's cooling you off. That's so true.
And you want to have your face in it for about like 10 seconds if you can. Come up for breath, and then give yourself like another 10 seconds, just depending on where you are. Yeah. Take a breath and just really let it sink in, and it does slow you down. It's crazy.
Yeah, I'm just going to look for my laptop charger, because I just got a message that my laptop's gonna die.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I love the color of your wall, by the way. It looks almost like the color of mine.
Okay. Because I'm back.
I was saying, I love the color of your wall. It looks almost exactly like the color of mine.
Thank you. It's a sage green.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah. Mine's more like a seafoam green.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Yeah. I'm like, it looks kind of blue. I like it. But I always figured, like, I was always one of those people that, thought that if I did any sort of drug, I would develop like schizophrenia. I just thought because of my already so severe mental illness and the way I reacted to things, that if there was any way that I dabbled with hallucinogens, that I was already predisposed to things not going right. Precisely, like a psychosis. And so that's why I'm very interested in microdosing. And I find with my first experience and having everything just shift to the back, I think people who were skeptical like me can find solace in knowing that if you, like yourself, find a way to have it in moderation, and you find the right amount for you, and you don't consistently do a hero's dose every time, and you're not like pushing yourself, and you're not already solidifying or confirming your prejudices towards it from the start. In our recent interview, we were interviewing a man named Edward Studies, who creates trance and meditation type music, so that you can,
very cool,
right? So you can enter a psychedelic state without needing hallucinogens, and I find that that's very interesting. It might be a combination of things to get it to that effect. You might also need hallucinogens, but it's also very important to have the right mindset and the right setting.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, precisely. And that's something that people kind of, when their first time gets fucked up, and that experience, it ruins it completely for them.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The very first time that I did mushrooms was one of those fucked up settings where like I was at a concert.
Yeah.
And we were just like, yeah, let's do this. And everyone looked like a demon monster thing. I was like, what is happening? And I took like a big dose too for like the first time, which I mean, it wasn't that big. It was a half an A.
For the first time,
Yeah, for the first time, my boyfriend and I split half an A. But it got so intense, we didn't even get to see the artist. We had to go back to the car and trip in the car and just listen to the music from inside the car because we were just tripping so hard. And I did not do mushrooms for a good minute after that. I was like, that first time was so intense. And I even I felt like I time traveled that first time. Like I had to constantly tell myself like, okay, this is the year, it's 2014, and you work at Skechers and you live in Moreno Valley, because like there were points where I thought I was back living in Hollywood, walking the streets drunk, and then I saw myself in the future with my husband growing old on our porch, like watching the sunset, and I was like, what is happening? So that first time was so intense, and I honestly have never had a trip that intense off of mushrooms again.
Wow. Yeah.
But I will say another drug that I have experimented with is DMT.
Okay.
And it's what gets released when you're born and when you die and when you sleep.
Yeah.
And those trips are insane. I recently met someone who's a DMT guide as well. He's a trip guide, and I really love what he told me. And so DMT tries to completely take your soul pretty much out of your body and bring it to like another dimension.
Okay.
It's intense. Like the one common thing that people say when they take DMT is, for the very first thing that they notice is a ringing, and it sounds almost like a sound bowl. And then for me, what it was is things started turning into like sacred geometry. And then they turned into kind of like ones and zeros, like the Matrix.
Okay.
And then I was like transported. So like it was trying to transport me out of my body. And so this is the last, I've done like maybe like 3 DMT trips, and this is the last one that I remember. It tried to take me out of my body, but I was so attached to the world. I clung on to my boyfriend who was sitting right next to me. And I ended up like I had this vision where I like fell into myself. It was so, and then I ended up going on a journey of like self-discovery where my boyfriend, and when I say my boyfriend, it's the same guy that I'm engaged to, my fiance.
Yeah.
He like ascended and had this whole trip, and I don't want to like discuss his trip off of just respect to his privacy, but I will say like he ascended and like he was able to just like leave and do his thing. And I talked to this DMT guide about it, and he was just saying like, yeah, DMT wants to take you out, and you just have to tell yourself like, I'm not going to die, I'm okay, I will be back. So it's a very intense trip. It can feel like a long time. It can feel like months. It can feel like days, but you're only in it for about 7 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah, it's very intense. You want to make sure. I've been hearing a thing about DMT pens. I don't know about those. If anyone hears about DMT pens, I would probably steer clear of those. But if you can find like a guide, someone who can take you on a trip through it, it's an amazing psychedelic experience that I believe is more spiritual and more real than we can ever imagine.
I've heard from many people when they are have completed taking DMT that they see God, they see a sense of God, they see a God, they see source, whether or not
Yeah.
it's God to them. They see, you know, capitalized source. And that's always the devil's advocate in me is saying, okay, is it the collective consciousness of source? Are you all seeing the same God? If you were to, and this could be true, you could prove me wrong. If you were to ask and create a poll and a graph of what is it that people will see, will you get 80% grids? Will you get 80%, you know, binary code? Will you get a similar God? Or will you get what happened, you know, with white Jesus? We see the God that we want to see. And so, and that's, I feel, and so for you personally was, if you can touch on it, and if you can't, that's completely fine as well. But with what you came to and what you discovered, what do you believe it was a combination and a culmination of all your biases and experiences to then allow you to see what you're supposed to see? Or do you think that collectively people do see the same thing or feel the same thing?
I think that collectively people have similarities, but I definitely don't think people are seeing the same thing. It's really interesting when you say people see God, because like I was saying before, my interpretation of God and everything is so different from other people. But I'll touch on that really quick. It's so I used to be Muslim, then I was Seventh-day Adventist, and then I was Christian. So I've been through a spectrum of a lot of the religions, and I noticed a lot, like just a lot of similarities in them. And so I've studied like quotes and like what some of their meanings could be. And my fiance and I have gone through a lot of like YouTube lectures on people exploring like what we've found historically and scientifically and how that can connect with the Bible.
Yeah.
So one of the things on there is, you know, Jesus telling us that we are God. And it's so blasphemous to some people. Like when you say we're God, and people are like, oh, how, like I say that to my mom and she's like, how could you say that? And
people don't want to have that much power knowing that they have the light inside of them, because then they have to be responsible.
Exactly. And when we look at quantum physics, they have now discovered that the world is a projection of what we have in our mind. Yeah. Like things only exist because that's how we see them. That's how, like, you know, they're having to change a lot of things about regular physics because of what they're discovering in quantum physics. And so my whole thing is, I do believe that we are God, and that we create this world, and that we have the power to do so many things with it. And collectively, you know, that belief creates this world that we have. If you get enough people to believe something, it will happen. An example of that are poltergeists. In Indonesia, everyone is so spiritual and superstitious out there that they have these like superstitions, like these ghosts and ghouls that people like actually see. And they like, I've heard so many encounters from so many different people, all of whom I consider very sane, like say that they've seen something called like a pocong, which is someone who is Muslim and gets buried. They get wrapped up in fabric, and they say that when the soul can't rest, the body gets up and bounces around, and you can see them sometimes like just bounce, like you can see them bouncing around. And I've met so many people who have said that they've seen one.
Yeah.
And I really believe that, like, I don't think that they're lying. I don't think it's in their heads. I think that so many people believe it, that it's created this thing.
Yeah. And it's I know it, I understand what you're touching on. It kind of almost leads to, you know, I admire activists a lot. I do. I really do. But in order for things to really change, there needs to be a whole shift in thought. We need, because when someone is born, there's a 50-50 chance that they're going to be a fat cat, greed, try to be corrupt, or they're just, you know, going to wake up and water their plants and mosey along. And, you know, it's just, as long as people are continuously being born, personalities and brains can be born of that which are going to continuously make us fight, because there's always going to be resistance. As long as people are born with brains that cause that resistance, why do we have to fight? Because personalities keep being birthed out that way. So through kind of almost evolution, if how you're saying, if people can hold on tight to thought, almost like how an appendix loses its purpose, this awful greedy mentality that the world consistently grips onto because it makes money, makes so much money. Who cares about the oils in the ocean? Who cares about the carbon emissions? It's money. That's all. It's money. We need money. And once that fizzles out through literal evolution, this is my belief. If people over like the span of 100 years can hold in their mind thoughts that you're presenting that are true, then brains and people won't be born with such insidious thoughts and ways of running the world and seeing the world.
Exactly. And I think that is coming to fruition a lot more. Like when I see the younger generation, I just see so much less greed. And of course there's those few people who are born into families and, that's all they know. But I think that the way that people are able to recognize, like, once again, those cycles and breaking them, it's so much more powerful than it has ever been. Because as a society, our values are shifting, and it's, you can even see it when you watch media from like the 90s, early 2000s, things that were accepted then, you would not see in media today.
Yep. All of Mad TV, pretty much.
And, people want to take it as like, oh, we're being sensitive or, whatever it is. But the way that I see it is, we're just acknowledging people's emotions now. We're acknowledging that it's not, things aren't only for our sense of humor, that people that people are attached to these jokes, and spreading those jokes can, even though it's great for your sense of humor, it's not good for people's well-being.
No, it's socially damaging. And psychedelics, we are now at a place where we are evolving with our social and emotional intelligence, and that's through the aid of psychedelics.
Yeah, and honestly, so I think the community that does DMT and that sees, and that, they say that they see God, I think they all kind of see God similarly. And I think a lot of the people that take DMT, they have kind of that spiritual awakening already, where they understand to a point that we are God. And, I think just the way that they visualize it is just however they're most comfortable seeing it. But most of the time, from what I gather, people are seeing, they're seeing like forms that they can't understand, to be honest. Like they can't say whether it was a bright light or whether it was a person standing in front of them. They just know that they've met somebody.
Okay, wow.
So that's another interesting way to look at it.
That is very interesting. I wish I've never done DMT. I've only done salvia when it was legal, when I was 18, and I bought it at a gas station.
That's crazy. I always wanted to try that, like when it came out, and Miley Cyrus was caught smoking weed, and she's like, "No, it's salvia."
Like, that's.
I was curious, but I heard like it gives you the sweats.
It's intense. Yeah. I live in Ontario. I'm in Canada, and so yeah, it was legal here for a period of time. I guess it was legal everywhere, but I live in an igloo. What do I know? I'm kidding. But I don't really. My experience with salvia, I was in it for about 15 minutes, and I did smoke it, and I found myself rising up, and I was a bird, and I had a bird's eye view of a bunch of wildebeests, and just a bunch of animals running on the Serengeti in a huge rush. And I didn't understand if they were running away or towards. It was like a rush of wind, and I was flying above it. And then the bird, I was a bird. And then I swooped down and I felt like the dust and stuff. And then I snapped back into my body. And then there was this voice, and it was a man's voice. I don't know why. And it said to me, you are boring. You are boring. You need to let go. You need to have fun. It was telling me I was too uptight. It said, you need to like let go. And I'm like, ah, fuck you. I didn't listen to it. I was 18. I'm like, you can't tell me what to do. You don't know me.
That's great.
You know what I've been through, voice. And then I was done, and I'm like, man, I'm never doing that again. And I didn't. But it was just a crazy rush of feeling like, and I know at the time I didn't know what I was trying to tell me, but I know now I needed to kind of let myself loose. I needed to feel as free as a wild horse does.
The breeze that a wild horse does. I love it. No, I love the whole visual of you being a bird flying through the Serengeti. I can't imagine what that's like. And that's something else that I also think that that these psychedelics can do is I do believe in like having lived past lives, and some of us having older souls than others. And you know, I think that when you take when you go on some of these psychedelic experiences, you might be reliving parts of your old life, you know. So maybe you were a bird in a past life, or maybe even a future life, because time has no actual line. Time is a crazy like just mixture of events, like time
is kind of layered.
Yeah. And something that is actually really cool, this is a whole nother thing, but just for your viewers to kind of dive into, is I was going through my phone and I somehow have this government document of something called the Gateway Experience. It happened in the 80s, and it was declassified in 2010. And it's taking like practices that people already know, like, you know, whether it's through like drugs or whether it's through kundalini yoga. And the science behind that, and bringing like your spinal fluid up to your brain and your pineal gland, and creating something called the Gateway Experience, which I don't want to misquote this because it's really crazy. So I'm going to go to it really quick.
Okay, of course.
But like, so the CIA has been doing work on this since the 80s. They know a lot about these visuals and about going through like time and space and all that stuff. So it says here, so it profiles all of the ways that people can start getting into the Gateway Experience. And then it says, now that we have briefly profiled the basic mechanics of the principal technique for altering or expanding consciousness, which shares some of the objective and or methods employed in the Gateway Experience, we may proceed to focus on what that technique actually involves. Fundamentally, the Gateway Experience is a training system designed to bring enhanced strength, focus, and coherence to the amplitude and frequency of brainwave output between the left and the right hemisphere, as to alter consciousness, moving it outside the physical sphere as to ultimately escape even the restrictions of time and space. I'll send that to you.
Well, please do, but also that's very rude of them to like, it's very rude. It's very, very rude, government. You know all this, and you're making us get up when the rooster calls and fucking go to work and do all this shit. And you know all this, and you're hiding it with your aliens.
Back in the 80s, dude, imagine what they know now. That was 40 years ago.
100%.
Imagine what they know now.
100% there's a cure to cancer somewhere vaulted up. 100%. That's evil.
Yeah, I do a lot of research. I'm honestly actually even thinking about going into the field of anthropology because of my activism and my love for research. But yeah, I do a lot of research. I love to find these government documents and And I'll send you this one for sure. It's a long read, but it's so worth it.
Worth it. That's so worth it.
And it just lets you know that these things that we are latching onto, such as the yoga, the psychedelics, it's the right way, where we're going in the right direction, and the government even knows it, and it's just something that they're hiding from us. And they run the hamster wheel so that we're too busy to look up and actually create and do the things that we're born to do. And it, on the surface, it's about money, because that's what we need. That's what we need in order to be able to do what we need to do. But the people on top, they create money. They have no limit. So
it's
for them,
illusion.
it's power.
Yeah.
They're just playing games with us because they have all the money. They're just trying to keep the power now.
I could listen to you all day.
Been going for a while. I'm so sorry.
Okay, just talk. I love it. It's great.
We should definitely talk more. We should definitely have more Zoom calls, hang out. I would honestly, I was seeing the submissions for your psychedelic issue coming up, and I'm probably going to submit, because I do, as you were saying earlier, I do write, and I would love to touch more on like the gateway experience and how and you know how psychedelics have been in use and have been ways that they've been medicine for hundreds of years, and the government knows it, and it's just about us sharing our experiences and being with each other as a community to make sure that we have this medicine and that we're in the, like you said, the right set of mind and the right setting.
Yeah, of course. Just to kind of touch on what you're saying, Doug Stanhope is a favorite comedian of mine, and in one of his bits, he says the goal of any civilization should be 100% unemployment, which means that you're at a level of emotional intelligence and camaraderie and understanding, and as a society, where the concept of money and the rats in the cage and the chasing the wheel, it's not necessary, and you're all at that understanding. And I that's beautiful. But also he does touch on, now cocaine isn't a hallucinogen, but it is a drug. But he does mention that cocaine is illegal, because if it was legal, it would stop production, because it would make fucking easier, because you wouldn't need that awkward introduction, because if you both had like, sorry if this is too vulgar, this is from his bit, if you both had the drugs, then you'd be able to get your primal desires out of the way, and men wouldn't work to make money to buy mufflers and spoilers for their Honda to soup up their cars to impress women. And so it kind of it's a very stark broad kind of vulgar way to kind of say that drugs are illegal, because if they were legal, we would question and not produce and not follow what they need. And I'm sure you know that. I'm sure I'm speaking to the choir.
Right.
But yeah, but it's just,
and I mean, there are those drugs that we do want to be careful of and watch out of. But yes. Yeah, I mean, why is cannabis a Schedule 1 drug like that? And then I believe CBD is even up there with it too. And like CBD is not even like psychedelic. And so yeah, there are definitely certain drugs. And then they give us these other drugs that fabricate the way that CBD, the CBD, THC, and mushrooms are supposed to make you feel. Yeah. And they get people hooked on those, and it's like
yeah, synthetic pot is actually so bad. It's so gross. So yeah, but it's not good. The gateway experience, definitely send me more information on that, because then I'll be able to send a link for people who are listening who want to check that out. So yes, that'll be really good. I kind of want to, the podcast that I do, I'm not sure if you've heard any, and it's okay, they're very casual, and usually my co-host Matt kind of comes in with like the rapid fire questions, and I'm usually the fill in the blanks with like humor and just like positive energy. But I do kind of want to give you the floor now to discuss anything that you feel we didn't touch on enough, or if you have anything personally as a creative that is launching or upcoming, if you do want to mention that.
Sure. Well, I guess one thing that I want to touch on a little bit is my activism, since we didn't get to talk too much of it.
Yes.
One of the first things that I did when I got into activism was I went to Standing Rock and witnessed a lot of what they did to the natives, and like the sound cannons and them firing at everyone with the hose, and them even just burning the hills as like an intimidation tactic. Like when we arrived at the campsite, the hills were on fire, and the natives were very sad, but they were keep making sure everyone was safe, and doing what they could to put it out.
What was this? What was going on?
So Standing Rock is something that happened, I want to say 2015 or 16, when in North Dakota on the, oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the river that it is right there, but there's land that was given to the natives. If you have ever seen the movie, oh my gosh, I'm blanking so much. It's a very famous Native American movie, but it has to do with this whole area and how I'll remember it, but how the land was given to the natives and how they were tricked so many times about, like, this land is yours. Oh, we're going to use it for something. No, this land is 100% yours. And so according to the last treaty, this land is theirs. And there was a pipeline that was supposed to get built cross country, and it was supposed to go through Bismarck, but the people of Bismarck recognized that it would be bad for their water. And they did the proper things that they needed to do to say, like, no, we don't want this pipeline. So they had to move it. The only other place they could put it was right through Native American grounds. And the natives did the same thing. And they're like, nope, too bad. We're putting this pipeline there. So they had no choice but to get in the way of the pipeline. And they called out to natives from all over the country and all over the world. And natives from literally all over the country went to Standing Rock to go support and help them fight off the pipeline. And in the end, we didn't get to have it we didn't get to prevent it from being built, but
it didn't work.
No, it didn't. But honestly, that was right when Trump became president, and he had a stake in the pipeline, and he pushed his powers to get it done.
That's so sad.
Yeah, it really sucks. A lot of people fought, but at the same time, it created this community for Native Americans that hadn't been there before. People really saw the plight and saw how natives were still going through it. And now, like, when natives call, like the call is so much louder than it has ever been before. And so ever since then, activism has just been a huge thing for me, and keeping peace. And it's really crazy because I'm so political, but also at the same time, my best friend has complete political opposites. So
really?
I want to show, like, she's completely different. We get into arguments, but I want to show people that, it's not about like arguing and getting the person to want to see your side 100%. It's about finding those common grounds and working on that towards a future that you can both see.
Precisely.
But we get into these arguments, we get into the little things, the semantics, and we just get so offended that we forget that there's people's lives here at the stake. Like, people get so upset with a flag burning, not that I ever condone it, but people get so upset that they forget that people's lives are being affected. And that's true. Like a point that's just trying to be put out there.
Yes.
So activism is something that's really huge to me. And that's the other thing that I try to do with my music, which is the only reason why I wanted to bring it around full circle. And I feel like the future that we were talking about will be brought by artists who can create this vision of that better future for people. Because honestly, the powers that be, they use media and music so much to influence the future that we see, and the future that we're coming up with in our heads. And, if everyone is thinking that this is the future that we're going to have, that's what's going to happen.
Oh my God, that's so true.
Yeah. So it's our job as artists who want to see this other future to culminate another vision for people to see, to stop that main media vision and be like, wait, there is this alternative,
Yeah.
And
tradition is just dead people's baggage.
Yeah. And honestly, like the biggest switch that I've seen in media is like, I want to say it happened like more like early 90s, mid 90s. The shows, the sitcoms used to be more situational. They used to be more like, oh, you get yourself in a funny situation. How do I get myself out? Yeah. And it's like now these days, these sitcoms are like kind of rely more around like dating, sex, cheating, betrayal, all the bad stuff. And it's like, and then at the end of the show, it gets solved and everyone's forgiven and it's okay that you did the bad thing. So people are now doing bad things thinking like, oh, it's going to be okay in the end. That's whereas before you learned a lesson, like the person got punished and you learned a lesson. And you're like, oh, well, that's a good lesson to learn.
Yeah. It's a very chicken eggy situation.
Yeah.
And especially depending on who you talk to, they all have such different opinions on it. They'll be like, nothing. I have an aunt who works in insurance, and she was telling me about how where she works, a lot of people scam the insurance companies, and she was telling me how they do it. And in response, I said, that's actually kind of smart. And then she goes, so if you look at it from a bird's eye view, if you just take out everything and just see how brains are analyzing situations, objectively, I can say that's smart. And she got so mad at me. She got so mad. And I'm like, I'm not saying I condone it. So people have a tough time accessing different compartments of their brain, literally, to see things the way that they should be seen. They won't even give you the benefit of the doubt. So I commend you on consistently being that voice, staying true to yourself, just standing solid. You're steadfast, and that's necessary because, people
Thank you.
Yeah.
You're so sweet. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, it's true. I know for myself that as a I'm English and I'm Italian, so my knowledge of a lot like Native American issues is little, because I don't actively I'm not involved. It doesn't affect me. That's my privilege, and I'm so aware of that. I am so aware that if I don't do any, like, it doesn't affect my life.
Yeah.
But
that awareness alone is beautiful, honestly. And then the fact that you can like say it so confidently, and and it looks like you've coped with it. And then like, because there's some people that like can't cope with that idea, and like they either feel bad or they'll like put anger towards it. But like you seem to have like really accepted it, and you're like on your way to maybe thinking like, okay, well, what can I do?
Yeah, and that's it, right? Because I can continue living my life without Paul and just be fine, other than I'm a woman, so don't tell me what to abort, you know what I mean? But other than that, it's fine. I can just chill. So with that knowledge, I do understand that I personally need to make more of an effort to understand how people are living, and it's a tragic world out there. It's terrifying.
Pretty crazy.
Yeah. So the things that you attend, and just, I also find that with the States, you have more crazy things going on. Like a riot in Canada is very subdued. And on Ontario riot is like, you go to Timmy's, you get a 20 pack of Timbits and you throw them at people. It's very much. It's very much.
Oh my God. We haven't done things like that since the Boston Tea Party.
Yeah. Okay, that's funny. But no, not to put down anyone's efforts in Canada, but just to say the States is very intense. It's an intense, incendiary, contentious country. So I admire you just living through the thick of it. Yeah. Yeah, sincerely.
Yeah, and as many times as people are like, well, if you don't like it here, just leave. It's like, no, I like it here. I want to make things better. Like,
yeah, that's really true. Yeah. But I mean, where else would you go if you left the States?
honestly, I would be with my family in Indonesia.
Oh, they're there.
Yeah, I mean, I have family here too. I have like one aunt here with my cousins, and then my mom and my siblings, but like all like my other aunts and cousins and all that, they're all in Indonesia.
Yeah.
And they're struggling. They're going through like the thick of it. And I just had to help them out. And, you know, I wish I could be there physically helping them. And just beyond that, like the society there, even though it's a poorer country, their values seem to be a little bit more in line with like family and like the way that they treat each other, like even when as strangers with respect, like they call each other like brother and sister, even if it's like someone that's like working in the store, you say, excuse me, sister, how much is this? You know, you don't just say like, hey, you, or whatever, you know?
Yeah. So I guess like that is very, very special, because I feel like from what you're saying, it might stem from that sense of camaraderie that's already ingrained in your blood and that you have naturally.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, oh, you're like, yeah, I guess like now with COVID, you can't have like big Christmas parties, but it's like, it's the extended aunts, and it's like, it's the second cousins you've never seen. And it's like the weird uncles that like make up the good times. I know I haven't, my family lives in Italy or Toronto.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Or Toronto rather is a city that's 3 hours away from me. You're like, what's Toronto?
No, I've heard of Toronto. I know of the major cities of Canada.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. It is. It's kind of like Canada's Hollywood.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. So that's kind of fun.
Yeah. But just to have your family around is really nice. So I'm glad that you have at least some nuclear family around you to keep you going.
Yeah, and as my fiance and I get married next year, I'll have a lot more now. So
yeah. So for I'm just trying to make sure that I have everything, because Matt sent me a list too of things that I should cover. So he's like, make sure.
I love it. Teamwork.
Yeah, he's a good team partner. Okay. Yeah, I did want to touch on your vision, which we definitely did vastly get into, and I'm really glad that you touched on your activism. This is going to be posted on Spotify, and also I have a Buzzsprout like hosting site for my podcasts. So this will be released on, what did I say, Friday or Sunday? Sunday?
I think it was Friday.
Yeah, it was Friday. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So this will be released Friday. And then before Friday, I will send you kind of like a follow-up email just to kind of discuss what we said and kind of what to expect. Because right now, this happens with every single interview. I get so kind of like inflated like a balloon, and then I get off, and then it all comes rushing back to me, and I start remembering everything. And I'm like, oh no, I should have. Oh no. So you'll definitely like be getting a follow-up email from me in case.
Yeah, no problem.
And so I just want to have you kind of say where we can find you, if you have an Instagram, Twitter, and your site, where you are on social media.
Yes. So the best way to contact me right now is through Instagram. My personal one is Bia Adriana. So Bia is the first 3 letters of my name, Bianca. And then Adriana is my middle name, but I use Bianca Adriana as my stage name.
Yeah.
So Bia Adriana, if you wanted to get a hold of my services, such as like professional audio or music production, photography, we do service pretty much all of the US. As I told you, we are van lifers and can travel anywhere. That one is on Instagram, justus.ent. And then you can find my music. If you want to listen to musical chairs, that is on all platforms, all major platforms: Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon. It's on Instagram if you want to add it to your story.
Just yeah, for anyone who's like, for those who are listening, it's a damn good song. It's a damn good song. It really is. So yeah, download it.
Be listening. I will have some follow-up soon. I don't have any dates, but they're cooking in the kitchen and they should be ready any moment. And yeah, thank you guys all for listening. I really appreciate it.
Yes, that is wonderful. Thank you again. This will definitely be like edited and chopped up a bit to take out all my awkward pauses. I do want to thank you again for taking the time out of your morning to spend this time with me. I really do appreciate it. Just meeting you and being able to finally get to know you as someone more than who I'm just podcasting or interviewing is very meaningful to me. Yeah.
Yes, thank you for being so easy to talk to, and I'm so comfortable, and I had a lot of fun.
Okay, I'm really glad to hear that. And if you want to talk again sometime, just message me. Maybe we could like have a Zoom hangout next week.
Heck yeah, I'd love that.
Day. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, we'll keep in touch on Instagram.
Yay. Okay, cool. I'm so excited.